You're listening to the Boxing Breakdown Report with resident Wager Talk handicapper Kevin Dolan. Get all your latest pro boxing tips at the SportsWolf83 on Twitter.
What's happening, boxing bettors? Welcome into this, another episode of the Boxing Breakdown Report with me, your host Kevin Dolan, where each and every week we'll give our thoughts on that weekend's most high-profile fights, and more importantly, the best value bets made in each one. So let's get into this week. So obviously the biggest fight in the card this week is going to be the clash between Canelo Alvarez and Sergey Krusher Kovalev. You know, this is a legacy fight for Canelo for sure. And he needs to be congratulated off the bat for doing it at 175. No catchweight bullshit in this one. He's going up to take on a recognised champion at 175, so we should definitely be applauded for that. Canelo, despite being the younger man, comes in with the far greater record in this one. He's 52, only one loss, 2 draws, 35 KOs across his career. Kovalev, you know, despite being the older man, slightly less fights, but still been in some high-profile fights in his time. 34-3-1 with 29 KOs. Very heavy-handed guy, Krusher Kovalev, hence the nickname. Canelo's the shorter man, comes in at 5'8.5". Kovalev's slightly taller man, 6 foot. But despite the height advantage for Kovalev, there actually isn't much of a difference in terms of reach. He's got only a 1-inch reach advantage, so that could play into this fight too. As we said, Canelo's the younger man, 29 years old, in his prime, fully in his prime. We see that nearly every fight. And Kovalev's definitely at the tail end of his career. He's 36 years old, but he's a well-worn 36 years old. He's been in a lot of wars, so we'll see how he stacks up. And, you know, a lot of people are suggesting this might be a cash-out fight for Kovalev. We'll talk about that a bit later in the breakdown. So, in terms of resume, Canelo's had a who's who. He's fought everybody there is to fight across multiple weight divisions. He fought Triple G twice. Miguel Cotto, Arislandi Lara. You know, this is the thing about Canelo. He fought guys no one else wanted to fight. You know, they obviously weren't money fights. Arislandi Lara, no one wanted to fight him at the time. Austin Trout. And he also fought Mayweather in his only loss. Technically his only loss. Officially his only loss, we'll say. I mean, I did definitely think he lost the first Golovkin fight. And in his last fight in May, he beat Danny Jacobs. Again, he looked excellent in that fight. Built up an early lead. Kind of took the middle rounds off, you know, let Danny Jacobs back into the fight, but then took over in championship rounds 10, 11, 12. Deserved winner in my opinion. In terms of Kovalev, his resume, again, pretty stacked resume. He fought Andre Ward twice. Again, officially 2 losses, but I thought he won the first fight quite clearly. He's fought Eleider Alvarez twice. 1 loss, 1 win there. Bernard Hopkins, Nathan Cleverly, Jean Pascal 2 times. His last fight was actually only 10 weeks ago, so could be another factor into this fight. He fought British up-and-comer Anthony Yard in Russia, hometown. As we said, that was August 24th, so that's only 10 weeks ago. Very quick turnaround for him into this fight. In terms of how he looked in his last fight, you know, Anthony Yard was very, very close to stopping him in the 8th round. Really had him on his last legs. So I think that kind of puts a lot of people on Canelo for this fight. Let's talk about their strengths and weaknesses. So Canelo has very little weaknesses in his game. You know, the one thing that might stop him from, you know, conquering the higher weight classes is his height. Because in terms of boxing talent, he does have all the tools. His arsenal is far greater, in my opinion, than what Kovalev has going into this fight. His inside the mid game is 100%. There's no weaknesses there. He rips off, you know, such fast combinations, and his multitude of punches, uppercuts, hooks, and his left hook is one of the most dominant punches in boxing. You know, you can rank it up there with Deontay Wilder's overhand right, and you know, a multitude of other punches. His left hook to the body especially is just devastating, and it gets guys out of there, you know, pretty quick. He's got a big hand speed advantage over Kovalev into this fight too. And his upper body movement, which we see, and it just keeps getting better. We've seen it against Danny Jacobs. Danny Jacobs is a great jab. He's an all-round excellent boxer. But Danny Jacobs was hitting the air for a lot, you know, big portions during that fight. Canelo's upper body movement has really went to the next level. In terms of how he can swivel on his axis and evade shots and kind of wing shots. roll with the shots. So, in terms of weaknesses, he had a problem earlier in his career, but this might have been the weight problem in terms of stamina issues. We've seen earlier in his career how he used to kind of take minutes of rounds off to recoup. He did it again in the first Golovkin fight, but I have to say, in his last few fights, he does it less and less regularly. So I actually think, instead of necessarily being a detriment, this extra weight might be beneficial. Now, it's hard to tell because this is such a mammoth jump that we just don't know at this stage. A lot of people are saying the extra muscle mass might hinder him in terms of stamina, which it might well do. We just don't know until it actually happens. But he looks good at this weight. He looked very good, at the pre-weigh-ins, like at the press conferences and stuff. So, doesn't say. We'll see how it affects him later on. But in terms of actual weaknesses, Canelo really doesn't have a lot. He's one of the best boxers on the planet. Kovalev, talking about Kovalev's strengths and weaknesses, Kovalev has an excellent jab, excellent left jab, and he comes overhand with that big right hand, which has led to so many KOs. Huge right hand there, and I do think he has the better footwork overall. I think he's the better mover of the two. Canelo doesn't move as quick as Kovalev on his feet. Kovalev's got a bit of bounce in his legs, although that's getting less and less as age hits him. He also judges distance very well, in my opinion, Kovalev. He uses the left jab as a kind of rangefinder, but not just a rangefinder, as that can be punishing in its own regard. But, the weaknesses, and this will lead into our play later on in this breakdown, but his weaknesses, in my opinion, he's kind of shot-born at this stage. Max Kellerman always likes to say how Andre Ward took his soul. I think, obviously, that's a bit of hyperbole, but nonetheless, he hasn't looked the same fighter since the second Andre Ward fight. He looks incredibly weak to the body, and he was given, shall we say, like when he came back after the Andre Ward, the second loss, he was kind of force-fed, tailor-made guys. I think Kathy Duver and her team did a great job of matchmaking. Guys like Shabransky were just, the comfort fighters. He was always going to bang them guys out, but he's going to have a trouble against a top-level technical boxer. We already seen Alvarez beat him, knock him out. So this could be a very tricky test for him. So his biggest frailty in this one is his body. We seen Anthony Yard in his last fight. Kovalev built up an early lead. I can see some similarities going into this fight of the same thing happening. Kovalev built up an early lead with his jab, his movement, his range. But slowly but surely, Anthony Yard started going to the body from round 4 on, started catching him to the body, and kind of took the wind out of Kovalev a bit. Eventually caught him up round 7 and especially round 8, and Kovalev looked almost done. But obviously, Anthony Yard, very green, kind of still a new prospect despite his age, and Kovalev's ring savvy, his experience in the ring, protected him. He tied him up when he needed to, survive the round. Excuse me. And obviously then went on to win. He recovered enough to go on and get his own stoppage in the 11th round. So, in terms of breaking down this fight, look, a lot of people who are suggesting backing Kovalev, I have nothing wrong with that. Kovalev's one of the best fighters we've seen at 175 for a number of years. And he is, a recognised champion, obviously. For people who are backing Kovalev, they're taking solace in the fact that, look, we've seen this 3 times in recent years. Guys who want to step up, skip an entire weight class, go up 2 weight classes. And in all 3 of those fights, it hasn't boded well for them. It hasn't went well for them. We've seen initially Kell Brook move up to face Triple G. He got blasted out of there. We've seen Rigondeaux went up to fight Lomachenko, move up 2 weight classes. He got blasted out of there. And most recently, we've seen Mikey Garcia also move up 2 weight divisions to take on Errol Spence. And again, didn't get blasted out of there, but lost pretty much every round of the fight. So it hasn't boded well for those who have decided to go up 2 weight classes. But I obviously feel this is different. Errol Spence is in his prime. Triple G was in his prime. Lomachenko was in his prime. I feel that Kovalev's not in his prime. Canelo has wanted this fight, ever since he kind of turned down the Triple G trilogy. This is the fight he's been after. He wants that legacy. And he knows, look, he's not calling out Dmitry Bivol or Beterbiev or even Gvozdyk. He wants Kovalev because, Kovalev's on the back end. We've seen he had severe problems against, Anthony Yarde in his last fight, so he's got a big body, he's got a big target on him, and I think Canelo knows he can expose that. Kovalev, if this was Kovalev from a few years ago, if this was the Kovalev, I backed Kovalev at 3-1 to beat Nathan Cleverly years ago when he went to Wales to fight for the title. Plus 300, absolutely mad price. Now, the Krusher Kovalev of that era, the guy who beat up Bernard Hopkins, Jean Pascal, I would take that guy over Canelo. The size difference, the range, the movement. He's not the same fighter as he was then. The age, and especially the Andre Ward victories have got to him, maybe shook his confidence. And we've seen also, look, the advantages in this fight are kind of nullified in my opinion, because Abel Sanchez, who trained both Triple G and Sergey Kovalev for a time, is kind of well known in his gym that, like we've heard of other guys, Darnell Boone, Abel Sanchez obviously said it too. We just said that he doesn't hit as hard as Triple G, and his jab, while good, probably isn't any better than Triple G's, who also has a first-rate jab. So, in terms of that, if we seen Canelo could stand up to Golovkin's punches, I don't see how Kovalev can fare any better than Triple G was catching Canelo flush at some points during that fight, in both fights, and he was easily withstanding him. So I just don't see how Kovalev can do any better than what Triple G did in this fight. The only kind of advantage that the Kovalev of now has over the old Kovalev is his new trainer, Buddy McGirt. I think Buddy McGirt, he's one of these no-nonsense trainers, and I think he's done a good job since coming in. And actually, Kovalev is a guy who's pretty undisciplined in between fights, so I actually think this fast turnaround might play an advantage in terms of him not breaking camp and doing what he usually does, multiple court cases against him and so on. So I think Buddy McGirt, look, he had that fast turnaround from his last fight into this fight. I think that might be beneficial for Kovalev. And Buddy McGirt's obviously going to have a good game plan going in. I just feel, as we'll talk about in the breakdown, that it's not going to be enough to save Kovalev in this one. And in terms of not just the power aspect of this, look, Canelo's moving up 2 weight divisions. He's never faced that kind of power. I believe he has. We just talked about Triple G's power. But also, look, Rocky Fielding, who he beat last year in December of last year, Rocky Fielding's 2 centimetres taller than Kovalev. And he's got a 6 centimetre reach advantage over Kovalev too. So the fact is, he's already fought guys of these dimensions already. And we already see, now look, I know Sergey Kovalev is a lot better than Rocky Fielding. But just in terms of the dimensions, Canelo knows. Canelo's already been in there with a guy that rangy, that tall, that he exploited. And again, he went low to the body. Kovalev's got a good body attack in his own regard. He does go well to the low to the body too, but he's going to have very little body to attack. Canelo fights low, so I can't see that body attack being to an advantage for Kovalev in this fight. So my official pick for this fight is I'm going to take Canelo by knockout round 7-12. You can get Canelo by KO anyway at a plus 200, but I want to increase the value because I think Kovalev's got enough smarts in this one to stay out of range. I do see him racking up points across the first couple of rounds, similar to what he did Anthony Yarde in his last fight. He's very good in his feet, but at some point I feel he'll tire just taking the odd body shot here and there. And obviously both of his recent knockouts to Andre Ward and Alvarez were round 7 and 8, so I could see that definitely playing in here. Now, you're getting a plus 325 at that. That'll be a play for us over at Wager Talk, 3% play. I like that play. So again, Canelo by knockout round 7-12 plus 325. You can get that on a multitude of books. So that's the play we're going to go for. Now, on the undercards and other fights of this weekend, we like, obviously these are not going to be official plays because the odds, the odds are putting us out of them, but we like Burchelt over Sosa. We like Brian Castano. I also like Ancajas as well. All excellent fighters. And another big fight, just quickly, we're gonna pass on over here is the WBSS final. Now we've seen the 140 pound last week between Josh Taylor and Regis Prograis. Great fight. This week on Thursday night, is going to be the bantamweight final between Naoya Inoue, my Japanese is a bit rusty, and Nonito Donaire. Again, Inoue is a massive minus 1,000 favourite in this one. I obviously can't play that, but let's just talk quickly about that fight. I'm also not going to take Donaire. I expect Inoue to win. I backed, when he had the semi-final, he fought Manny Rodriguez. I backed Rodriguez. I got a plus 650 on Rodriguez. Thought that was great value. To me, that was the final. I thought that was the final right there, that side of the semi-final, because I thought they were the two best boxers in it. It's not Donaire's fault, but his draw to this final has been ridiculous. In the first round, he fought Ryan Burnett. I had Burnett up 3-1. The fight got stopped in the fourth round due to Burnett having a back injury. I had Burnett up 3-1 in that fight. I would have expected... Burnett was the number one seed going into this tournament. I would have expected him to win that fight. Donaire's good, but as we seen in the Carl-Frampton fight, he's definitely faded. He's not the same fighter he was. He got through that fight. And then the semi-final, he was due to fight Zolani Tete. Again, you would favour Tete over Donaire. Tete got a shoulder injury, I believe. And then he fought, I think it was Stefan Young, some stand-in the semi-final. So basically, that's all he's fought to get to the final. So I think he's going to get a severe wake-up call. Now, again, I'm not laying minus 1,000 anyway, but neither am I taking Donaire. I do expect Donaire to get beat in that one. Next week, actually, we're going to take a couple of weeks break, because next week is KSI versus Logan Paul. I don't even know who these guys are, internet YouTubers or something, so obviously I don't rate that as a proper fight. I don't care if it's on the zone, so I'm not going to make a podcast about something I don't know. And we'll return for Wilder Ortiz 2, which is on November 23rd. I could see us having a play on that for sure. So that should wrap things up for this episode of the Boxing Breakdown Report. As always, I look forward to reading your comments below, and you can follow me over at Wager Talker on Twitter at the SportsWolf83. As we said, we'll be back on November 23rd for Wilder Ortiz 2. So until then, good luck on your bets, and Slán Abhaile.